Title: The Letters of Two Hearts. The small, picturesque town of Willowbrook was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business. Nestled between rolling hills and a sparkling river, it was a town where secrets were hard to keep. But 22-year-old Clara Bennett had managed to keep one of the biggest secrets of her life hidden from everyone, even her closest friends. Clara was a dreamer, a romantic at heart who spent her days working at the local library and her nights lost in the pages of classic novels. She longed for a love story as grand as the one she read about, but in a town as small as Willowbrook, options were limited. That was until she discovered the world of online dating. It started innocently enough. Clara created a profile on a popular dating site, using a pseudonym and a carefully curated photo that showed just enough of her to intrigue, but not enough to reveal her true identity. Within days, she was inundated with messages from men eager to get to know her. But two in particular stood out. The first was from a man named Ethan. His profile was filled with photos of him hiking, kayaking, and exploring the great outdoors. He was ruggedly handsome, with a smile that could melt even the coldest heart. His messages were filled with tales of his adventures, and Clara found herself drawn to his free-spirited nature. They began exchanging long, heartfelt letters, sharing their dreams and fears, and slowly but surely, Clara felt herself falling for him. The second man was named Daniel. He was the complete opposite of Ethan, quiet, introspective, and deeply intellectual. His profile was sparse, with only a few photos of him reading in cozy cafes or walking through city streets. But his messages were poetic, filled with profound insights and a deep understanding of the human condition. Clara found herself captivated by his words, and soon they too were exchanging letters that delved into the depths of their souls. For months, Clara corresponded with both men, each letter drawing her deeper into their worlds. She told herself that she was simply exploring her options, trying to figure out which of them was the right fit for her. But as time went on, she found herself growing more and more attached to both of them. She couldn't bear the thought of choosing between them, so she continued to write to both, each letter filled with the same passion and longing. But as the months turned into a year, Clara began to feel the weight of her secret. She knew that she couldn't keep up the charade forever, but the thought of ending things with either Ethan or Daniel was unbearable. She loved them both in different ways, and the idea of losing either of them was too much to bear. One fateful day, Clara received a letter from Ethan that changed everything. He told her that he was coming to Willowbrook, that he couldn't stand being apart from her any longer. He wanted to meet her in person, to finally see the woman he had fallen in love with through their letters. Clara was overjoyed, but also terrified. She knew that she couldn't keep up the facade any longer. She would have to tell Ethan the truth. But before she could respond to Ethan's letter, she received another letter, this one from Daniel. He too was coming to Willowbrook, driven by the same desire to meet her in person. Clara's heart raced as she realized the gravity of the situation. Both men were coming to see her, and they had no idea that she had been corresponding with the other. Panic set in as Clara tried to figure out what to do. She couldn't possibly meet both men at the same time, but she also couldn't bring herself to tell either of them the truth. She felt trapped, caught in a web of her own making. But as the days passed and the date of their arrivals grew closer, Clara knew that she would have to face the music. The day finally arrived, and Clara found herself standing in the town square, her heart pounding in her chest. She had arranged to meet Ethan first, and as she saw him walking towards her, her breath caught in her throat. He was even more handsome in person, his rugged features and warm smile making her heart skip a beat. But as they embraced, Clara felt a pang of guilt, knowing that Daniel was also on his way. As if on cue, Clara saw Daniel approaching from the other side of the square. Her heart sank as she realized that there was no way to avoid the inevitable. She took a deep breath and stepped back from Ethan, her eyes filled with tears. "Clara, what's wrong?" Ethan asked, his voice filled with concern. Before she could respond, Daniel reached them, his eyes narrowing as he took in the scene before him. "Clara?" he asked, his voice tinged with confusion and hurt. Clara felt the weight of her secret crushing her as she looked between the two men. I need to tell you both something," she said, her voice trembling. "I've been writing to both of you, I didn't mean for it to happen, but I couldn't choose between you. I love you both in different ways, and I didn't want to lose either of you." The silence that followed was deafening. Both men stared at her, their expressions a mix of shock and betrayal. Clara felt tears streaming down her face as she waited for their response. Ethan was the first to speak. "Clara, I don't know what to say. I thought what we had was real." "It was real," Clara said, her voice breaking. "But so was what I had with Daniel. I didn't mean to hurt either of you, but I couldn't help how I felt." Daniel stepped forward, his eyes filled with a mixture of anger and sadness. "Clara, you should have told us the truth. We both deserve to know." "I know," Clara whispered. "I'm so sorry." The three of them stood there in the town square, the weight of Clara's secret hanging heavy in the air. Finally, Ethan spoke again. "I need some time to think about this," he said, his voice quiet. "I don't know if I can forgive you, but I need time to process everything." Daniel nodded in agreement. "I feel the same way. This is a lot to take in." Clara watched as both men turned and walked away, her heart breaking with every step they took. She knew that she had made a terrible mistake, and that she might have lost both of them forever. In the days that followed, Clara retreated into herself, avoiding the outside world as she tried to come to terms with what had happened. She knew that she had hurt Ethan and Daniel deeply, and that there was no easy way to fix what she had broken. But as the weeks passed, Clara began to realize that she had also learned something important about herself. She had been so caught up in the idea of finding the perfect love story that she had lost sight of what was truly important: honesty and trust. She knew that she could never undo the pain she had caused, but she also knew that she could learn from her mistakes and become a better person. One day, as she was walking through the town square, Clara saw Ethan and Daniel sitting together on a bench, deep in conversation. Her heart raced as she approached them, unsure of what to expect. "Clara," Ethan said as she reached them, his voice calm but firm. "We've been talking, and we've decided that we need to hear your side of the story. We want to understand why you did what you did." Clara took a deep breath and sat down beside them, her hands trembling as she began to speak. She told them everything: how she had started writing to both of them, how she had fallen for each of them in different ways, and how she had been too afraid to choose between them. She apologized for the pain she had caused and admitted that she had been selfish and thoughtless. When she finished, there was a long silence as Ethan and Daniel processed her words. Finally, Daniel spoke. "Clara, what you did was wrong, but I can see that you're truly sorry. I don't know if I can forgive you right now, but I'm willing to try." Ethan nodded in agreement. "I feel the same way. It's going to take time, but I'm willing to give you a chance to make things right." Clara felt a glimmer of hope as she looked between the two men. She knew that she had a long road ahead of her, but she was determined to do whatever it took to earn back their trust. In the months that followed, Clara worked tirelessly to rebuild her relationships with Ethan and Daniel. She was honest with them about her feelings, and made a conscious effort to be transparent in everything she did. It wasn't easy, and there were many moments of doubt and pain, but slowly but surely they began to heal. In the end, Clara realized that love wasn't about finding the perfect person, but about being honest and true to yourself and to those you care about. She had learned the hard way that secrets and lies could destroy even the strongest of bonds. But she had also learned that with time, patience, and a lot of hard work, it was possible to rebuild what had been broken. As she stood in the town square one final time, looking at the two men who had come to mean so much to her, Clara knew that she had finally found the love story she had always dreamed of. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real.
Title: The Secret in Santorini. The sun dipped low over the caldera, painting the whitewashed buildings of Santorini in hues of gold and pink. For 26-year-old Clara Bennett, it was supposed to be the trip of a lifetime, a romantic getaway with her boyfriend Daniel, to celebrate their 2-year anniversary. But as the days unfolded, Clara began to suspect that something was terribly wrong. By the end of the trip, she would uncover a secret so shocking that it would force her to change her tickets home and flee the island in the dead of night. The perfect facade. Clara and Daniel had been the picture-perfect couple. He was charming, successful, and endlessly attentive, the kind of man who remembered anniversaries and surprised her with little gifts. When he suggested a trip to Santorini, Clara had been thrilled. It was her dream destination, and she couldn't wait to explore the island's winding streets, crystal-clear waters, and breathtaking sunsets. But from the moment they arrived, Clara noticed subtle changes in Daniel's behavior. He was more distant, often lost in thought, and his phone buzzed constantly with messages he refused to let her see. When she asked about it, he brushed her off, saying it was just work. Clara tried to ignore her growing unease, chalking it up to stress or jet lag. But deep down, she knew something was off. The first clue. One evening, as they dined at a seaside taverna, Clara excused herself to use the restroom. On her way back, she passed by their table and noticed Daniel's phone lighting up with a notification. The name on the screen made her blood run cold, Emily. Clara's mind raced. Who was Emily? She had never heard Daniel mention anyone by that name. She tried to push the thought aside, telling herself it was nothing. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it began to grow. Later that night, as Daniel slept, Clara couldn't resist the urge to check his phone. She knew it was wrong, but her curiosity, and her fear, got the better of her. She carefully unlocked it, he had used the same passcode for years, and scrolled through his messages. What she found made her stomach churn. The messages. The messages between Daniel and Emily were intimate, filled with inside jokes and declarations of love. They had been seeing each other for months, long before Clara and Daniel's trip to Santorini. Emily's messages were filled with excitement about their future together, and Daniel's replies were equally affectionate. Clara's hands trembled as she read through the conversations. She felt like she had been punched in the gut. How could Daniel do this to her? And who was Emily? But the messages were only the beginning. As Clara dug deeper, she found something even more shocking: photos of Emily, along with a plane ticket confirmation for Santorini. Emily was coming to the island, tomorrow. Clara's heart pounded as she realized the truth. Daniel hadn't brought her to Santorini to celebrate their anniversary. He had brought her here to break up with her, to end their relationship in a place far from home where she would have no support. And Emily was coming to take her place. The confrontation. The next morning, Clara confronted Daniel. She showed him the messages, her voice shaking with anger and betrayal. At first, he denied it, but when he realized there was no point in lying, he broke down. "I didn't mean for this to happen," he said, his voice filled with guilt. "Emily and we've been seeing each other for a while. I thought I could end things with you before she got here, but I couldn't find the right time." Clara stared at him, her heart breaking. "So you brought me here to dump me? To replace me with her? How could you do this to me, Daniel?" Daniel looked away, unable to meet her gaze. "I'm sorry, Clara. I never wanted to hurt you." But Clara wasn't done. "Who is she, Daniel? Who is Emily?" Daniel hesitated, then sighed. She's my wife." The shocking truth. Clara felt like the ground had been ripped out from under her. "You're what?" Daniel nodded, his face pale. "Emily and I have been married for 5 years. We've been separated for a while, but we never officially divorced. When I met you, I thought I could start over. But Emily and I reconnected, and I realized I still had feelings for her." Clara's mind reeled. All this time, she had been dating a married man. Daniel had lied to her, manipulated her, and now he was planning to leave her stranded in Santorini while he reunited with his wife. "You're a coward," Clara said, her voice cold. "You couldn't even be honest with me. You had to bring me here, to this beautiful place, just to break my heart." Daniel didn't respond. He just sat there, his head in his hands, as Clara packed her bags and stormed out of the hotel room. The escape. Clara knew she couldn't stay in Santorini. The thought of running into Daniel and Emily was unbearable. She changed her flight tickets, booking the first available seat back home. As she waited at the airport, she couldn't stop thinking about everything that had happened. She felt betrayed, humiliated, and utterly heartbroken. But as the plane took off, Clara felt a strange sense of relief. She had uncovered the truth, no matter how painful it was. And now she was free. Free from Daniel's lies, free from the facade of their relationship, and free to start over. The aftermath. Back home, Clara threw herself into her work and her friendships, slowly rebuilding her life. She deleted Daniel's number, blocked him on social media, and vowed never to let anyone treat her that way again. Months later, she received a letter from Daniel. In it, he apologized for everything he had done and admitted that he had made a terrible mistake. He and Emily had tried to make things work, but their relationship had fallen apart. He realized too late that he had lost the best thing that had ever happened to him. Clara read the letter once, then tossed it in the trash. She didn't need his apologies or his regrets. She had moved on, and she was stronger for it. The new beginning. Clara's trip to Santorini had started as a dream and ended as a nightmare. But in the end, it had taught her an important lesson, that she deserved better. She had uncovered a shocking secret, but she had also discovered her own strength and resilience. As she stood on the balcony of her apartment, watching the sun set over the city, Clara felt a sense of peace. The past was behind her, and the future was hers to shape. And this time, she was determined to make it a happy one. The end.